Hi, how are you? We have an interesting topic today, a bit difficult but very educating. Many people believe that they have a lot of knowledge. They also think that other people every so often know what they claim to know. But what is knowledge anyway? And how do we come to acquire knowledge? And does it really matter that we have knowledge? If so, why? So these are some of the important questions surrounding knowledge, and in today's discussion, we'll attempt to answer these questions. So let's start with what is knowledge. Mostly, when we mention knowledge, we are talking about propositional knowledge. That is knowledge that can be expressed as a proposition or statement, such as the earth is round. But there is other mental data that may look as you're having knowledge. For example, knowing how to drive a tractor is knowledge. Knowing what a mango tastes like is knowledge. This isn't propositional knowledge, but still rightly fits as knowledge. One popular historical definition backed by the likes of Plato and Descartes terms knowledge as justified true belief. But there could be instances of justified true belief that don't count as knowledge. Suppose your wall clock is malfunctioning and has got stuck at 12:15 p.m. It stays this way all morning and you don't notice. Then all of a sudden you happen to wonder what time it is and look at the clock and see 12:15 p.m. Coincidentally, the real time at that moment also happens to be 12:15 p.m. So your belief that it is 12:15 p.m. is justified, as you still have no reason to doubt your clock, as well as true because it actually is 12:15 p.m. But this would not count as knowledge. Now consider another example. Suppose Mike is convicted of murder and the evidence against Mike is strong, but Mike is innocent. Does the jury know that Mike committed the crime? No, because knowledge necessitates truth. The jury deemed it, but they didn't know it. So to start with, this was to help you understand that even though knowledge as a minimum requires both justification and belief, there can be instances when even justification and truth don't suffice for a belief to count as knowledge. Simply put, knowledge refers to what we know and understand about the world around us and ourselves. And as we saw it, it can be both objective and subjective. So, in addition to propositional knowledge, other types of knowledge include explicit knowledge. This is knowledge that is easily communicated and written down, such as facts, figures, and procedures. Then you have tacit knowledge. This is knowledge that is more difficult to articulate or transfer to others. For example, mystic experiences, personal experiences, intuition, or even practical skills. You don't just pass them on to someone. They have to be learnt over a long period of time. And then procedural knowledge. So this is knowledge about how to do something, such as we talked about driving a tractor, riding a bike, or cooking a meal. And then finally, you have declarative knowledge. This is knowledge about something, what something is, such as the definition of a word, or the properties of an object, an element, or whatever. So that is knowledge. Now, what is justification? Knowledge requires justification as it is usually taken to be a justified true belief. That is, if you claim to know something, you must have a good reason or justification for your belief about that thing. Now, for example, if you toss a coin but don't look at the results yet and just believe that it is heads, and in actual fact it is heads, it doesn't mean you knew that it was heads. So justification is what would be required to transmute the lucky guess distilling into belief that the coin came up heads into knowledge. So you would have to obtain good reason to believe that the coin came up heads. For example, you look at the coin. So justification is when a belief is supported by evidence. In general, the factors that justify your belief must be available within your own first person conscious experience or verifiable as evidence. Therefore, justification of whether a belief was reliably formed depends on what you are aware of from the first person perspective or from the evidence available to you. So we talked about what is knowledge, the justification, and so now what are the sources of knowledge? You saw what it means to have justified beliefs. You also saw that there could be justified false beliefs. For example, when we saw that Mike is convicted of murder he didn't commit. So people will be justified in believing that he committed the crime. The jury punished him for it, yet Mike verily is innocent. So their justified belief is false. Now let's discuss when our beliefs are in reality justified. What is the source or explanation of that justification? The foremost source of justification is, of course, our empirical observation, making use of our senses, the tools of science and thinking or introspecting to look inside our own mind. And there may be some knowledge that we gain through intuition, definitions, or some other assumed non-empirical evidence. Even though such knowledge is justified independently of any particular empirical observation or awareness of the evidence, it's not entirely independent of any empirical observation because often we need empirical observation to trigger the relevant concept in the first place. So rationalists like Plato, Descartes, Leibniz and others believe that we have important, valuable a priori knowledge about the world that proceeds from theoretical deduction in the absence of observation or experience. More practical people, empiricists like Locke, Berkeley, Hume, they on the other hand believe that all of our important knowledge of the world is empirical, is practical. So that's the source of knowledge, and let's move to justification for knowledge now. Generally, we think we can deduce new beliefs from our existing beliefs. We believe some ideas and on the basis of those beliefs infer that some propositions are true, right? If someone asks you to validate a belief, you're likely to mention other beliefs you have. Beliefs, validating beliefs. I know Lake Ural exists because maps show Lake Ural, and then another belief that maps carry trustworthy information. Now, but can we continue that backward inference forever? That's an interesting debate. So one prevalent position is foundationalism. Foundationalists say that this regress stops at justified beliefs, and since the regress has stopped, those beliefs aren't defensible by any inference from any other belief. Descartes is one of the most important proponents of foundationalism. Foundationalists find it very difficult to explain what could justify a belief other than an inference from some other belief. That is, if it appears to you as if something is true, is that appearance enough to justify the belief? Another widely claimed position is coherentism, which contends that one's beliefs are justified by being part of a grid or network of coherent beliefs. So in order for these beliefs to be coherent, they have to be all logically consistent and reciprocally sustaining. Coherentists find it difficult to explain why there needs to be any input from outside one's own mind in order to have a set of justified beliefs. Or in simple words, why isn't mere coherence with the rest of one's beliefs is enough? So in summary, a set of inferences can give us justified beliefs, but it is possible to acquire false or unjustified beliefs which wouldn't be knowledge in any case. Let's briefly discuss skepticism also. Skeptics deny that we have some element of knowledge. Now, there can be skeptics about a whole range of things, such as whether we have knowledge of the external world, like world beyond the contents of our conscious experiences. We have moral knowledge, religious knowledge, knowledge from memory or knowledge of the past, knowledge from induction, scientific knowledge, or knowledge of other minds. So, a number of prominent and great thinkers have advocated global skepticism, according to which we have no knowledge or no justified beliefs at all. Now, while we look at skepticism, some of the other issues that confront the study of knowledge are the nature of perception, the nature of understanding, whether we should trust our peers when they disagree with us, then relationships between epistemology, trust, and justice, how different reasons for belief, not just epistemic reasons, should affect us or determine whether we have knowledge. What value there is, if any, in having knowledge, especially in contrast to mere true belief. Whether knowledge means the same thing in all contexts. Does knowledge require certainty? Remember, we talked about Descartes and a couple of other videos also, whether our beliefs should be continuous with or even replaced by science, mere empirical data. And there are a number of issues, so I just cited a few for you to be aware of them. Let's now sum up our discussion. The study of knowledge that we discussed examines the nature, origins, and limits of human knowledge. We call it epistemology. It is concerned with questions such as what is knowledge, how is knowledge acquired, what is the relationship between belief and knowledge, what are the criteria for justifying knowledge claims, and the study of knowledge examines different ways of knowing, such as perception, memory, reason, intuition, senses, testimony. It also explores the role of language, culture, and context in shaping knowledge claims. We'll do another video on that because that also makes a lot of difference. But whatever the context, epistemology considers questions such as how do we know what we know? How do we distinguish between knowledge and opinion? Learn to distinguish between knowledge and opinion. How can we be certain of anything? The idea is to help us understand the nature and limitations of knowledge, and the discussion we had today provides a framework for evaluating different sources and types of knowledge. So ultimately, as we have seen, the goal of all discussion, including ours today, is to understand how we can acquire and justify knowledge in a reliable and systematic way. While the modes of acquiring knowledge are plethora, it is becoming more and more challenging to examine and decide what actually constitutes knowledge and what doesn't. So I hope our discussion today will help you in that respect, and look after yourself till we meet again next time. Thank you.